Content warning. This story contains themes of possession, violence, and supernatural horror. Reader discretion is advised. The small town of Millfield was known for its picturesque countryside and friendly locals. But there was something sinister lurking in the shadows of the town, something that would soon be unleashed. John had always been a reserved man, keeping to himself and avoiding social interaction whenever possible. His coworkers described him as strange, with a distant look in his eyes that made them uneasy, but they never suspected the dark force that was slowly taking over his mind. It started with strange occurrences, small things at first. Objects would move on their own, doors would open and close without explanation. John would brush it off as mere coincidence, but deep down he knew that something was off. Then came the nightmares. John would wake up in a cold sweat, unable to shake off the feeling that he was being watched. He would see shadows moving in the corners of his room, and hear whispers in his ear that he couldn't quite make out. It wasn't long before the possession took hold. John's personality began to change, becoming more aggressive and erratic. His coworkers noticed the shift, and some even reported feeling threatened by his behavior. The town's priest, Father O'Malley, had heard rumors of John's possession and decided to pay him a visit. As soon as he entered John's house, he felt a heavy presence weighing down on him. He knew that this was no ordinary possession. Father O'Malley tried to perform an exorcism, but the entity inside John was too powerful. It laughed in the face of the holy water and prayers, taunting the priest with its presence. The exorcism failed, and Father O'Malley left the house shaken. Meanwhile, the people of Millfield began to notice the changes in John's behavior. He would roam the streets at night, muttering to himself and staring at passersby with an unsettling gaze. Some even claimed to have seen him levitating off the ground, his eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. The local police were called to investigate, but they too were powerless against the possession. John would lash out at anyone who tried to approach him, his strength seemingly multiplied by the entity inside him. He became a danger to himself and others, and soon the town was in a state of panic. Desperate for a solution, the townspeople turned to an unlikely source of help. They sought out a group of paranormal investigators who had gained a reputation for dealing with cases of possession and hauntings. The investigators arrived in Millfield, armed with their equipment and their knowledge of the supernatural. They set up a base of operations in a nearby hotel, determined to find a way to free John from the entity that had taken hold of him. They conducted several investigations, using EMF detectors, thermal cameras, and EVP recorders to gather evidence of the supernatural activity. They witnessed objects moving on their own, heard disembodied voices, and even captured images of shadow figures lurking in the corners. But the most disturbing evidence came from John himself. Under hypnosis, he revealed that the entity inside him was not just any demon or spirit, but something far more ancient and malevolent. It had been lying dormant for centuries, waiting for a vessel to possess and wreak havoc on the world. The investigators knew that they had to act fast. They called in a team of spiritualists who specialized in banishing dark entities. The team arrived at John's house, armed with candles, salt, and holy symbols. They performed a ritual that lasted for hours, calling upon the power of the divine to drive out the entity that had taken hold of John's body. The house shook with the force of the battle, and the investigators watched in horror as